I'm Teresa Carraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. Today I'm doing a short and snappy Sunday unscripted rant, and this is on forgiveness is the shortcut. Notice I'm not saying forgiveness is the answer, because the answer has already been set and accomplished by God, and that is something we can't change even if we wanted to. What we can determine is how long it takes for us to recognize that. We are in control of time. We are the master of time, and we can take as much time as we want. So that's my question. How much time do you want it to take to get to the answer? Because you and you alone determine that. And you determine that through forgiveness. If you want to wait another 10, 20, 30 generations, you're free to. That's okay with God, because time is this bubble that God has given us in order to scramble like hamsters in a little hamster wheel. We can do that for as long as we want. But if we are sick and tired of it, which I, for one, will say that I am, we can get a shortcut. So let's explore how that would work. This method of forgiveness is based on A Course in Miracles, because the Course is the Course, of course. And if you're old enough to get that reference, let me know in the comments. The cycle that I'm doing right now is in the 300s, and it's called What is the Second Coming? It's a year-long program that I've done several times, and this time I started on my middle daughter's birthday, so I'm coming around to that again. And this portion looks at what is the second coming. And I'll read the very beginning. Christ's second coming, which is as sure as God, is merely the correction of mistakes and the return of sanity. It is a part of the condition that restores the never lost and reestablishes what is forever and forever true. It is the invitation to God's word to take the place of illusion. The willingness to let forgiveness rest upon all things without exception and without reserve. My specific reading for today was, Where darkness was, I look upon the light. And it says, Our love awaits us as we go to Him and walks beside us, showing us the way. He fails in nothing. He the end we seek, and He the means by which we go to Him. So, what is forgiveness? The Course talks a lot about what forgiveness is not. That it is not seeing yourself as benevolent and generous and giving this person this gift of forgiveness that they do not deserve because they did those horrible things, and you, because you're so much better than them, are going to forgive them. That ain't it. What forgiveness is, as I interpret it, is giving forward the benefit of the doubt that you would want given to you. If there was something that you did that, say, hurt someone else, what you would want is for that person to say, okay, why did they do this? What were they thinking? What were their intentions? And to say, and here are the two things that I think are the crux of forgiveness. That person is doing the best they can. And if I were in their shoes, I couldn't do better. So forgiveness can be helping someone do better by either changing their circumstances or their perception or how they see what they're doing, or taking away their power to do harm. That's a very big part, I believe, of forgiveness. As long as someone is enabled to continue doing harm, they're not just harming you, they're also harming themselves. And I know that this is a tough thing with everyone looking at the oligarchs and the psychopaths and these people who have enormous power. But the first step is taking their power away. And that doesn't happen as easily in any other way than through forgiveness. In the year-long program of study called the Workbook of A Course in Miracles, you'll have many exercises in forgiveness. And these are daily things that you may do several times a day, sometimes even every hour, every half hour. And you might be thinking about someone who maybe enrages you, who's really wronged you, or you might be thinking about someone who just irritates you. And the Course says these are all the same thing. All of these are that person who you are seeing as other. And so you meditate and you come to some place of maybe understanding. And that isn't necessary, but it seems to be the result when I've done it. So these are generally personal situations, but I want to look at the forgiveness exercise that I did with the face of evil himself, Hitler. I put out one called Forgiving Hitler, and that was really a spiritual exercise that I was doing, where I said, okay, I'm going to apply this principle to the person who personifies evil. And in it, I also asked a question, because I said, there's these things about World War II that just don't make sense to me, because we know, or should know, that at the end of World War I, Germany was subjected to such a brutal restructuring and hunger and debt repayments and hyperinflation, and ended up where hundreds of thousands of people died, and people were defrauded of everything that they had just to stay alive. So how did they go from that to being a powerhouse, such an economic powerhouse that they could go to war with almost the entire world? That seemed to me something that I couldn't make sense of, and that before they went to war, they seemed to be pretty self-reliant and have a good standard of living. So how did that happen? How did they go from one to the other? So I started this just as kind of that spiritual exercise. As one question led to another, and I did more and more research, here is the astounding place that I came to recognize that Hitler never gave a written order for the extermination of European Jews, or showed that he was aware of any such program. David Irving, if you've seen that episode, offered $1,000 to anyone who could show him that. And then in the lawsuit, the other side had $13 million. And all they had to come up with was one single written order, either directly from Hitler or from one of his officers saying, here's what Hitler wants us to do. Neither of those exist. But on the other side of that, there are things like Hitler's program, where he allowed the Jews who had appropriated a third of German wealth during that time when everyone was destitute and had been defrauded, and they were able to pick up at pennies on the dollar. And what Hitler enabled them to do was not just to emigrate to Israel, but also to take their wealth with them through this way in which they would use it in the banks to buy goods, especially ones that could be used to build up Israel. Those were shipped to Israel and then sold there, and the money would go into their bank accounts there. So there was a mechanism by which Jews could not only emigrate, but take the wealth with them. And then you have 3 different pieces of evidence where one of the Reich's officers says that Hitler wants to put the Jewish question on the back burner until after the war. And then you have Hitler talking about the resettlement in the East, which they were saying was a euphemism, but taking it on face value, and then also talking about Madagascar and how he was looking at Madagascar as a place that, after he got it from France, could be a resettlement place for the Jews. So this makes it where what I know for certain is that I've been lied to. I don't know what the truth is, but I do know that I've been lied to. And so I have to reconsider everything that I think that I know. So it felt to me like that spiritual exercise ended up coming back with full force to say, yes, you can take the face of evil itself and examine it. And if you examine it, what you're going to find is things are not as they seem. And another question that's led me to is, what is fascism? I've been going by Mussolini's definition, or so I heard, that it was the collusion of business and government. And then Margaret Anna Alice just linked to an article on what is fascism. And one of the people who commented on it was Rat Says, who does the excellent cartoon. So I asked the question of, this has really made me curious. Did fascists win World War II? And is this something that started as a popular movement? Because it doesn't seem like anybody would vote in the collusion of business and government. So Rat sent me to the Wikipedia page on the Fascist Manifesto. And that blew me away, because the original by Mussolini is talking about unions being seen as equal to partners in trading, and then a minimum wage, having the retirement age go from 65 to 55, getting rid of the Senate, which was appointed by the king. And by the way, the U.S. Senate is also based on something that in the British was made to keep down the House of Commons and make sure the people did not rule. So there were a number of things, including taking back the papal lands and also looking at military contractors and renationalizing those and taking back 85% of the profits by those weapons manufacturers. These didn't seem like the collusion of business and government at all. Definitely not when you compare it to the U.S. Imagine if we in the U.S. nationalized all of our defense contractors and took back 85% of the profits of our weapons manufacturers. So now I don't know what to think. Once again, I'm left in this place of saying, okay, I don't know what I do believe, but I know something happened and we're not being told the truth. To bring it back to the mundane, one of the commenters has been writing about how he thinks that the most dangerous people in the world are those who believe that all people are inherently good. And he believes that we are all X numbers of missed meals away from murdering our neighbors, and he'd rather be around people who are honest about that. Now, I personally think that I'm 99% sure that I would find some way to off myself before I got to that, because what am I going to do after I murder my neighbors? Am I going to eat them? I mean, none of them even has the right level of marbling. We're all tough old birds out here. So why would you even want to live in that kind of situation? And I'm fully sure that the oligarchs who have just burned Lahaina have no illusion that all people are inherently good. So does that make them dangerous? I think the most dangerous people are those who believe in their own superiority. And whenever we have that little bit of superiority in us, that we are also perpetuating that, because I think those oligarchs look at themselves and say, I'm already fully evil. I've already sold my soul to the devil. I am beyond redemption, and so I might as well just keep on going. That's not something that is helping us. And so laying more blame is not going to change that trajectory. But you, and you alone, could change it with forgiveness. And that's not by looking at your superiority. It's looking at what would make me do the same thing in their circumstances. And looking at that intergenerational organized theft and what it's like to be a child. What is it like to be a child of that kind of oligarch? Is that really a life that you would wish on anyone? I'm just one cell in the brain and you're one synapse away. We're all 7 degrees of synapse away from each other. This could change like that. So if you want to see more, here is the original on Forgiving Hitler, and this is on the trials of David Irving, so that you can get the full picture, the full journey. Thank you for watching.